Very good morning. Welcome back to PRBites. This is me reading out the newsletter that I send out twice a week for the Public Relations podcast. This is just the audio version of me reading it, plus adding a few other thoughts as I think of them spontaneously. And if you'd like to get the written version, just head to the publicrelationspodcast.com, click on the newsletter button, and you can get that there rather than me rambling on. Something I thought last night, my partner brought home this... the best way to describe it is a stress toy. It's like this cat, but it is the size of your hand, and it's one of these squeegee, I don't know, this rubbery squeeze it when you get stressed sort of thing, and I can't help but just keep squeezing it. Do you have anything on your desk that you kind of is your natural go-to thing that you squeeze when you just need to kind of fiddle with something? I would be curious to know, what do PR people have as their squeezy things? Anyway, let's get on with the newsletter. And what have I got for you today? Oh, a couple of things actually to talk about, first of all. Why the search engine optimization industry may need your help. Might provide some clients or even some work. Do people really want to hear celebrities on podcasts? And how one firm leaned into a PR crisis. Plus, I've got a scenario for you as well. It's going to be a packed little episode today, actually. Firstly, I just wanted to say, I mentioned this on Tuesday's episode, that things might be a bit inconsistent over the next 2 weeks. Things are going to be getting a bit hectic on my end. Sadly, this whole podcast project is still a passion project, so as always, work commitments need to come first. But I'm going to turn around things as quickly as I can, but there's going to be no PR bites next week. There should still be some episodes going out, though. I've got a couple of things lined up that I want to try and get to you, but PR bites takes a little bit of time to do, so I'm going to have to leave that next week. Despite that, though, there should still be plenty of podcast episodes to go back through. So if you haven't caught up on some of the stuff in the past, there is so much stuff that I've been sharing over, it's a few years now. Right, talking about episodes, if you missed yesterday's, I released a quick podcast episode yesterday where I shared some techniques for preparing and performing well in podcast interviews, whether it's for your client or your boss or for yourself. And I covered a range of tips based on my own experiences, as I'm sure you know by now, an editor, journalist, and interviewer. And if you haven't caught that episode yet, then head over to the podcast feed, which you can find at thepublicrelationspodcast.com if you're not already subscribed to that. Right, let's get on with the bits in today's newsletter. And the first off, we're starting with I Spotted and leaning into a comms crisis. I was reading an interesting article actually on PR News Online yesterday on how California Pizza Kitchen handled a PR incident pretty well. And a customer ordered macaroni and cheese, but they received only cheese. Yeah, not very good. Naturally, this went viral, and people were complaining online about it. But instead of responding in the usual way with an apology and a replacement, followed by attempts to kind of highlight their past reliability, the company decided to lean into the situation. And they not only sent out a corrected order, but also offered half-price mac and cheese for, I think, all customers at that particular restaurant. And on top of that, they posted a lighthearted piece showing how they were retraining staff to avoid this mistake in the future. And the article's author highlighted how most companies will batten down the hatches when this sort of thing happens and become defensive. But by leaning into it, they gained a lot of good PR and warm feelings, and it really managed to turn it around. Next one was making stories last longer. A journalist friend of mine posted on LinkedIn the other day to promote an upcoming talk at, I'm trying to remember, is it the Foreign Journalists Club in London? And it was all about extending the life of stories beyond their usual 24-hour news cycle, and it was aimed at journalists. The problem any decent journalist has today is that the demand for in-depth, good stories is obviously much less than it used to be. And people now just want fast new content. And sadly, I can't get to this talk, but I was curious as to how they were thinking about journalists, how they could extend the story beyond the 24-hour news cycle. And what it proved to be from the description is it's about repurposing stories into longer formats, such as turning them into books, films, serials, podcasts, and more. And for us, it feels like an important opportunity to remember this, that there are still plenty of journalists out there who are driven by this desire to tell meaningful stories, not just to churn out quick clickbait. So if a PR person can help them with background to those stories and help them develop these projects, even giving them contacts or even promoting the story in some way or connecting them with the right people, you could see your story featured in a podcast series or even potentially in a film. Fingers crossed in a good light. as long as you're doing something which is going to be turned into a good story that portrays you well. And there's obviously plenty of opportunities to be able to do that, whether that's a discovery you're making, whether it's a big challenge or a project you're trying to solve or a problem you're trying to solve for people or something like that. I mean, at the least, simply by helping these people, it could open doors when we want to gain coverage opportunities from them in their day-to-day other work. The third thing I put in I spotted was, do people care about listening to celebrities? Now, I always enjoy reading Tom Webster's posts on LinkedIn. He's a researcher in the podcasting world and has been for years and gives some great talks. And he currently works for Sounds Profitable. And his latest post says that while podcast apps tend to promote celebrity podcasts and people click on them out of curiosity, actual engagement from shows comes from shows that talk about things that people are interested in, celebrity or not. That's what the data shows. So if the celebrity waffles on, people switch off. So content is actually the driving factor of engagement rather than a celebrity. Might sound, obvious this, but it's interesting though that a celebrity alone, in other words, if you get a celebrity to front your campaign, it's not enough. They've got to actually come across as authentic and care about it and engage in it. I don't know how many press junkets I went to as a journalist where you would meet a celebrity who was simply there. They would book for half an hour and they would turn up, smile, have some photos and go. And you just, as a journalist, I don't even know why I'm covering this. And you would pay kind of lip service to it because you're there. But it just doesn't carry the story as much as a celebrity who's actually engaged in the story and interested in the topic. I mean, now I really am going off topic compared to the newsletter. But what's his name? The Superman guy. Oh, gosh, can't believe. Oh, Henry Cavill. That's it, Henry Cavill. Why is he so popular with fans? Because he's seen as being an absolute geek. So whether that's for playing computer games or like he did the Witcher TV show and he was a real expert on the lore behind that. Why? Because it's a celebrity, yes, but because they actually care about it. So this is what the data is showing. There was some other interesting information that he came out with in this post, and he was talking about the fact that one of the reasons that people listen to a podcast is not because they're particularly interested in it, but because it's simply some noise while driving, traveling, walking, or exercising. In other words, they want something that at least talks about something they're interested in, but it is just generating some company for them as they go along. It's so important to know this stuff. I mean, I know from my own podcasting work. I'll give you an example, right? Do you know why I rarely ask you to write something down in the public relations podcast? Because I know most of you are either eating a lunch or out jogging or in the car. This is what you've told me. Actually, one listener told me he listens to the show while mountain biking in the Austrian Alps. I'm not quite sure I can tailor up the podcast to that, but anyway. Right, moving on. Any other updates for you in the next section? I've got a tip from a guest and talking about the SEO industry, and I've got a scenario for you to practice on as well in a few moments' time, but just a quick update from me. I'm currently actually having talks with a university about doing some guest lecturing for their journalism course. It's been going on for quite a while. I did actually mention it once before. They seem to quite like this sort of mix of PR and journalism experience that I've got. In fact, I talk to all of you now about PR, and it could be a really interesting talk about the balance of getting it right between the two and how you rely on journalists, as comms people, and how they rely on you as the media landscape is continuing to change. But I also want to understand how they think as the next generation of journalists. I think we've all got a lot of perceptions about how they think, but it'll be interesting to hear what they actually say to me. And that way, hopefully we can understand what it is going to be their thing that you're going to need to say in order to connect with them in future. What are those words? We immediately say things like the environment, but that can mean a lot of things. So what is it that they're actually thinking? That's the kind of thing I'm going to be looking for. Right, next one, tip from a guest. A tip from Snani Sokal from Intelliquo in India. And she said to you, if you want to get a journalist or influencer to cover your story over a period of time, rather than just one post, give them an experience to be part of that will take time. It could be a new lifestyle regime or even a medical procedure, but it should be a journey with a beginning, middle, and end. So find the right influencer who's clearly interested in this thing and then reach out to them and offer them the chance to take part in it for free if they document it. Right, 2 more bits to go for getting a client or a new boss, and then I will give you that scenario for a bit of a brain twister, actually. It's quite a fun one, but I'll tell you one in just a second. Let's just talk about getting new clients or a new boss. for your comms work. The search engine optimization industry might not seem like an obvious place for PR people to find new clients or opportunities, but I came across an interesting article on Search Engine Land, one of the top SEO blogs, highlighting a huge shift happening in that space. Now, the article discussed how professional SEO people are struggling to get their content listed as organic results because they're getting pushed further and further down in search engines compared to paid ads. Plus, with the rise of AI, simply putting content out there, it just isn't enough anymore because it won't even get referenced unless the source's name is crucial to the story. In other words, it has to be mentioned simply to explain the facts to someone searching on AI. And the article argues that the SEO industry just needs to wake up now to the importance of digital PR. Traditional SEO tactics like keywords and tags are just not going to be enough anymore, it said. So you need to be seen as not just having good keywords and tags on your site and backlinks from other good websites, but being talked about and discussed by others across the board as a credible and authoritative source. In other words, you need social validation. In other words, you need the kind of thing that you're doing with PR and comms. You know, you take a big story like Oasis announcing their return, right? And everyone's talking about it. So it naturally gets massive free coverage. The media has no choice but to cover it because people are going to be expecting to hear about it. It will come up high in results, whether it's paid for or not. And AI will inevitably use it as an example in many things as well. So yes, your next boss or next client could be someone in the SEO industry as it seeks to find new ways to boost its client's presence online with digital PR. In other words, your skill set. Finally, for today, let me round it up with a scenario, a fun puzzle for you. See what you think about this. And this is a classic one for if you're standing on the train. Have a think about this and see what you would do. Here's the scenario, first of all, and it's a high-tech scenario to think about. So imagine this, right? You've been employed by an electric flying car company that wants you to help them get people to buy these cars. But they have a problem. People are just not taking the technology seriously, and they need your PR help to sort this out. Bit of background, the small 4-seat aircraft can hover above the ground, pick you up from anywhere, and fly about 30 miles, about 50 kilometers. But they could make commuter traffic a thing of the past and act as a high-tech airport transfer system as well. But they're not ready yet, and have only made small test flights at an airfield. Your goal, this is what they're employing you to do, is to embed this message in people's minds. Flying cars are serious technology and will be here in the next 2 years, and you won't want to miss out. So how are you going to do this? Your research shows that people feel flying cars are an unrealistic luxury or a long way off from being a practical solution. As always, you can choose just one option of the two that I'll give you today. Do you, number one, launch a Witness the Future limited access event series where selected potential buyers, influencers, and journalists can watch controlled test flights at this private airfield with detailed presentations from engineers and pilots on the safety, technology, and all the regulations and all that? Or do you, number two, develop a virtual test pilot website, which talks about the aircraft, but also lets people plot points on a map of their normal car journeys and shows how long it would take in these vehicles and compares the prices and time of a car versus the aircraft? It asks people to sign up for more details, obviously tailored to them after that. So do you launch this event at the airfield for potential buyers, influencers, and journalists, or do you develop this website, this virtual test pilot website? This is what I would do, right? This is my feeling, and as always, I'm really interested in what you would do. My gut feeling when I looked at these two options was I would actually go for the test pilot website, because it would reach lots of people, it was easy to do, and was likely to be shared. But there was a problem that then immediately struck me. This isn't going to reach the right audience. Yes, it's likely to get more people noticing, but it's more likely to reach people who are unlikely to ever want to buy this product in the next few years because the people are likely to be younger, playing with these systems online. It's like a bit of a game, and they probably won't have the means to afford it. So what? We don't want to leave anyone out. At the end of the day, obviously our job is to reach the core demographic. So I would actually go for option one because I think this is more likely to get coverage in, for example, airline magazines, where you're likely to get a higher, particularly a business traveler who's going to be more interested in that kind of level of content. It's more likely to be covered by the sort of industries that are likely to reach the right potential buyers. So while it would be a couple of events you're going to have to put on, there's also plenty of repurposing possible from that event because you can use those events to market to airline magazines, technology publications, business publications, and news stories based on the technology. There's so many different angles to it that I think that one source event would provide that content. So my vote would be for option one. But as I say, what do you think? What would you do in that situation? It's an interesting one because I think we're going to see these flying cars coming along soon. So if you got involved in one of those projects, what would you do? Love to know. That's it for today. Have a great weekend. Have a great next week. As I say, I'm going to have a podcast episode for you next Wednesday with Kathleen Vicente, where we're going to talk about how you could perhaps tap in to sales teams and salespeople, rather than CMOs. So actually salespeople, to try and get work through them, because there appears to be quite a demand from salespeople for more PR. So there could be an opportunity. Next Wednesday, I've had that chat with Kathleen where we discuss some of the work she's been doing, talking to sales teams and what she's finding as some of the touch points that they're interested in. So I'll have that for you next week. No PRBites next week, but I will be back real soon with this as well. So have a nice weekend. Have a nice next week, and speak to you real soon. Oh, don't forget, as always, you can reach me on LinkedIn, even if I don't reply quickly at the moment. It's Richard Midson, Midson. Feel free to connect with me, Richard Midson, Midson. And you can, of course, always subscribe to the podcast via the publicrelationspodcast.com. Click on that newsletter button or on the listen button to get all the links for basically everything. Speak to you real soon. Bye.